What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another NFL analysis video, this time for week 3. So without any further ado, let's just get right into this. So first thing I want to mention is that the Thursday night game between the Dolphins and the Jaguars was way better than it had any right to be. The Dolphins were really good. They played really well. I think they have I'm not going to say they're a playoff team. They're definitely not a playoff team, but they have potential to get more wins than I think most people thought they would. So good look for the Dolphins. Jaguars kind of lose their momentum that they had in the first 2 weeks, but I mean, I don't think anyone expected them to win any games this year. So the fact that they're still 1-2 is pretty impressive. So that's just something I wanted to talk about before we get into this. And so here we go. And the first game that I'm going to talk about is the Bears at the Falcons. And so I have the Bears winning this one. The Falcons are the saddest team in the NFL right now because, wow, that game against the Cowboys, they put up so many points. They had such a big lead and they blew it. I still cannot understand how they're so good at blowing leads like that. If there's one thing they're good at, it's doing that. I mean, and even against the Seahawks in week 1, they put up a lot of points and yards, but they still lost. They couldn't handle the Seahawks. So I have the Bears winning this one because even though they've been kind of narrowly winning the past 2 weeks, the Falcons, I don't think, are going to be able to hold the lead against them. So I have the Bears going up to 3-0, which I never would have predicted, by the way. I thought the Bears would be a pretty middle-of-the-road team. Guess not. Trubisky looks like he's definitely bouncing back, which is nice. And so is the defense. Defense looks great so far. So yeah, I have Chicago winning that one. And so for the next game, we have the Rams at the Bills. And although I am impressed by how the Rams have been doing so far, another team I didn't think would be winning a lot of games this year, I have the Bills winning. Josh Allen is just unstoppable. I mean, it's realistic for him to be in the top for MVP contention this year. He's looked outstanding so far. He's been throwing for a lot of yards. He's great on the ground. Like that one truck he had last week was just brutal. I mean, that man is unstoppable. And with Stephon Diggs is exactly what Josh Allen needed. I know I said that about DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray last week. Same deal for Allen. This is exactly what he needed to develop. And I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do. And so I have the Bills winning that fairly easily. I think they're going to pick apart the holes in the Rams' defense. Even though the Rams have looked pretty good so far, I still think the Bills are going to win. So our next game is Washington at the Browns. And I have the Browns winning for the second straight week in a row. Mayfield definitely is showing improvement. I'm not going to say he's, back to where he was in his rookie year, but he looks good, I will say. Pretty good against the Bengals last week, but that was also, the defense was a huge factor in that win as well. But Washington is just pretty unimpressive, except for the front seven. The front seven's been great. Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan have been awesome so far. So that's definitely something to watch out for, but the Browns have a pretty decent offensive line now, so I wouldn't be too worried about that if I were a Browns fan, which definitely not. I wouldn't put myself through that. But I have the Browns taking the win here because Washington's just not that great of a team, and the Browns have a little bit more momentum coming off that win against the Bengals last week. And so now we have the Titans at the Vikings, and so I have Tennessee winning because, wow, the Vikings are bad. I had them making playoffs, leading the NFC North. But I was very wrong because Kirk Cousins is not playing good at all. Their O-line's pretty unimpressive. The team as a whole just doesn't seem like they want to win. And the Titans have been getting narrow victories, but they are still winning. They're able to get it done. And so I have the Titans winning because they do have a better defense than the Vikings do right now. So I think that might be the difference maker as well. But also, Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. I mean, never, ever count out Derrick Henry. So I definitely have the Titans winning that one. So next, this is the game that one of the games I'm most excited for is the Raiders at the Patriots. This is an interesting one because the Patriots, honestly, the way they're looking now and the way their roster holds up, they could go 9-7 or they could go, 12-4 again. It really could go either way. So and the Raiders looked really good against the Saints last week. I want to point that out. I was hoping that they'd win. Didn't think they would, and they just wanted to win more than the Saints did, and they really picked apart Drew Brees, which is what they needed to do, and then the offense was just unstoppable. I mean, Derek Carr is definitely much better than everyone thinks he is. Josh Jacobs is seriously a top 10 running back. And Darren Waller, I think, is probably one of the most underrated players in the league. I think he's definitely a top 5 tight end, and I think he could end up being in the top 3 by the end of the season. That's just me, though. I think especially with George Kittle missing, X amount of weeks of time, we don't even know how long he's going to be out. I think he'll definitely emerge as one of the top tight ends. So I do have the Raiders winning, but this one I could seriously see going anyway because Cam Newton looks fantastic, and they will have James White back after the terrible situation of his dad passing away in a car accident and his mom being in critical condition because of it. It was just a really sad situation that happened on game day last week. So really sad to hear about that, but he should be back this week to play. And he could be the difference maker. I mean, they could have beaten the Seahawks last week if they had James White, but who knows. So I have the Raiders getting a narrow victory, but I could very easily see it going the other way too, so don't quote me on any of that. The next one I have is the Niners at the Giants. And listen, sounds insane. I would have thought I was insane for saying this before the season. I have the Giants winning. All right. The Niners are missing so many players. All right, they are not starting with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's out, so they have Nick Mullins as their starter. They don't have Nick Bosa. He's out for the season. They don't have Solomon Thomas. He's out for the season. George Kittle's out for now. Richard Sherman's out for now. Tevin Coleman's out for now. I think Raheem Mostert might be out as well. They are just drained of their starters right now. I mean, the offensive line is intact and some of the defense, but they're missing a lot of key pieces on there, especially the quarterback and especially Nick Bosa are the two biggest ones. It's just, I don't know, man. The Niners are not in a good spot right now. I think this could ruin their placement in the NFC. I still see them making playoffs. It just depends on how long Garoppolo's out, because I don't think he's the best quarterback by any means, but he is a starting quarterback for a reason, and I just don't think Nick Mullins is going to be that great, but I could be totally wrong, and they could pick apart the Giants, but I gotta say, Daniel Jones has been much more impressive this year than he was last year. I was a guy that didn't have a lot of faith in him going into this year, but so far he's looked pretty good. So I have the Giants on top here, even without Saquon Barkley, who got replaced by Devontae Freeman for now. So that's how I feel about that. So the next game is going to be the Bengals at the Eagles. And again, this is a huge collapse. I didn't think the Eagles would be 0-2. But they lost to Washington and the Rams. Pretty unimpressive. Wentz has looked terrible this year. He's had career lows in just about every category through his first 2 games. And it's not looking good. They don't have a lot of receivers to help him out. And the Bengals looked pretty good against the Browns. I mean, they came back at the end, made it look like a closer game than it really was. But Joe Burrow has it, man. I think he's definitely what people think he's going to be, and what they hoped he was going to be. I think Burrow is definitely that guy, and he's the future of the Bengals. Just not right now, but I do see the Bengals getting it's hard to say. I kind of take back. I was going to say I see them getting a win, but I think the Eagles are going to squeeze one out here and finally get a win on their record. Bengals are great. Greater than everyone thought they would be, but I just see the Eagles getting one out here finally, because really there's no excuse for them being this bad. Wentz is a great quarterback, usually. They have one of the best offensive lines, but seem to be giving up tons of sacks. Their defense shouldn't be that bad. They have big names and had a good offseason, but I guess not. I guess they're just flopping this year for some reason, but I do have them getting a win here, and we'll have to see how their season goes from here. So the next game I have is the Texans at the Steelers. And so, again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm a Steelers fan, so this is obviously the game I'm looking forward to most this week. I had Pittsburgh winning here, and if this was last season, I would have had the Texans beating us. But the Texans have looked pretty poor this year, and I know they played the 2 best teams in the AFC in the Chiefs and the Ravens, but they've allowed the most pressures against two not amazing defensive lines, and now they have to play ours, which is arguably the best defensive line. It's not going to be a good time for Deshaun Watson because they've allowed the most pressures and we've provided the most pressures, and that's just not a good combination. And TJ Watt is, bias aside, my pick for Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's on fire so far, picking right up from where he left off last season. I have Watt winning it this year, and Ben Roethlisberger looks great again. I think we're going to go through the Texans fairly easily because their defense isn't very good either. It's just not a good formula, especially against us. So I have the Steelers winning here. Next game is the Jets at the Colts. I have Indy winning. They pretty soundly beat the Vikings last week. And the Jets, I thought the Jaguars would be the worst team in football this year. I think it might be the Jets. They have statistically the worst offense and not much better on the defensive side of the ball either. They've been smacked through week 1 and 2. I have the Colts pretty soundly beating the Jets here. And so the next game is the Panthers at the Chargers. And so we know now what the hell was wrong with Tyrod Taylor and why he didn't start last week, and it's because the trainer punctured his lung while trying to give him a pain-killing injection. Crazy situation, but that's why Herbert started, and he looked fantastic, all right? He took the Super Bowl champs to overtime, and I just think he's definitely the answer for LA. But the other thing to note is that Christian McCaffrey is out for this game, so I am a big supporter of Teddy Bridgewater, but without one of the best offensive players in the league, I don't see the Panthers putting much damage in here, especially against the Chargers defense that's a lot better than it was last year, especially because of how good their offseason was. And Joey Bosa is potentially having a Defensive Player of the Year type of year this year. I would say other than TJ Watt, he's probably the other best edge defender. I mean, I know you could argue Khalil Mack or Von Miller. Or, sorry, not Von Miller. I'm thinking of Chandler Jones. Von Miller's out for the season. Didn't mean to say that. I would have Bosa in the top 3 conversation for Defensive Player of the Year so far anyway. Who knows? He could slow down, he could speed up, win it, or not. But Bosa's a huge threat. Probably one of the top defensive threats in the league right now. So I don't have the Panthers putting up too much of a fight here. So I have the Chargers taking the win. Next game we have is the Buccaneers at the Broncos. And so I have Tampa winning. Brady looks okay. A lot better than week 1. Gronkowski is a non-issue. He's dropped some pretty wide open passes. He has like 1 reception. I predicted this before the season even started. I thought Gronk wouldn't be a threat at all. So far that seems to be what's happening. And so the Buccaneers, I think, will narrowly win this. And it's because the Broncos are just riddled with injuries right now. They don't have Von Miller. He's out for the season. They don't have Drew Lock for now. Could be gone for a couple more weeks. Cortland Sutton, I think, tore his ACL or something to that effect. It was a really bad leg injury, I just remember. They might not have Philip Lindsay, as far as I know. They might not have AJ Boye. It's the Broncos had the potential to be like a 7th or 6th seed playoff team this year. I would argue that's completely out the window now. I think this couple week span of not having Locke is going to really drag down their record a lot. I think they're going to lose most of the games in that span. I'm not sure how their schedule looks. I'm not entirely sure right now, but I think they're probably going to lose a lot of those games. And so I think the Buccaneers are going to win this one. So next, we have the Lions at the Cardinals, and I have Arizona winning. I mean, they are on fire, I think more so than anyone thought they would be. Hopkins and Murray are probably the best duo in the league right now. Murray is such a threat on the ground, and he's a great passer as well. I think people seem to forget about that. But I definitely have the Cardinals winning, because something to note is that these teams played each other in week 1 last year, and they tied, which was interesting to see Kyler Murray's first career start be a tie. But that's what happened. And so I don't think this one will tie again. I think the Cardinals are going to pretty soundly beat this because DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the league. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, Julio Jones is a very, very close second. You could even say he's like 1B. But I think Hopkins is the best receiver in the league. and Murray is, I would argue, top 3 so far at least for MVP. I mean, he's looked great so far, and their defense is playing better than people thought they would be. So I have the Cardinals winning there. And so next we have the Cowboys at the Seahawks. So I have Seattle taking the win here. I don't think it's that far-fetched that the Cowboys could possibly win, but they did not beat the Rams, and the Rams are not as good a team as the Seahawks right now. I think that Russell Wilson, and I've been saying this for Allen and for Murray, but I think Russell Wilson's the favorite to win MVP this year. He's just been outstanding so far, and he has never had an MVP vote in his entire career, and that's just baffling to me. Thinking about making like a long form video talking about why Russell Wilson's the best player in the NFL right now, because I will die on that hill. All right, like Russell Wilson is the most impressive player because he is as good, if not better, than Mahomes, than Lamar, with significantly less around him. And I think that's just what makes him more impressive. And so I'll make a whole video talking about that at some point. It's been an idea I've had for a while. But that's just how I feel about that right now. I think the Seahawks are going to beat them pretty easily. Jamal Adams has looked fantastic for Seattle so far. So I have him being a pretty big difference maker. And the Cowboys' offensive line hasn't been as good as they were last year. And you could narrow that down to being unprepared because of no preseason or something like that. But I don't know, man. They just looked not as impressive as I thought they'd be. I thought with Mike McCarthy they'd be a top team in the NFC. But, I mean, look, I'm not going to speak too soon here. We're only 2 weeks into the season. It could definitely go the other way, but I don't see the Cowboys doing too great this year, so I have Seattle winning. So the second to last game we have here is the Packers at the Saints for the Sunday night primetime game. I have Green Bay winning, and they were a team I thought would go somewhere around 8-8, maybe even as high as 10-6. But I had the Vikings winning that division. The Packers are playing very, very well. Rodgers has looked great so far, and so the Saints, they lost to the Raiders, and I've been on the Raiders hype train since this offseason. But they're not the most impressive team in the AFC. So the fact that the Saints lost to them and the Saints are a top NFC team, I kind of have lost my faith in that team. And Drew Brees seems to be pretty poor without Michael Thomas at this point in his career. So I have the Packers winning there. Aaron Jones is a top-tier running back too. People seem to overlook him. He's just great. I mean, he looked great last week. And I just have the Packers winning here. I mean, I'm just really disappointed in how the Saints have looked so far because I thought they had the potential to be a Super Bowl winning team this year, maybe, and have Breeze go out on top. I don't know how I feel about that right now, but again, with a lot of these predictions, you just got to see how the season plays out. You never know. Teams, take turns for the worse or for the better all the time in football, so you just got to see what happens. So the final game, the Monday night game, is the Chiefs at the Ravens, and this is probably the most exciting game of the week. It's the two best teams in the AFC. It's the defending Super Bowl champs against the defending MVP, Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens have only played a pretty bad team in the Browns and an okay team in the Texans. That's the things that these two teams have in common. They both beat the Texans. The Ravens held them to less points, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm entirely sold on the Ravens yet because they haven't played a really good team yet. And the Chiefs were taken into overtime by the Chargers, who are not a top team, but it's also a division game. Those tend to go differently than just normal matchups. But it's hard to judge both of these teams at this point because neither of them have played top-tier teams until now. This is kind of the proving game for both teams. And I think that I have the Chiefs winning here because Patrick Mahomes is pretty unstoppable in the passing game. And now they have a top running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I just think that their offense is going to be pretty unstoppable because the Ravens have a good defense. They have a pretty solid defense, but it's not that great. It's not a Steelers defense. It's not a Patriots defense. It's not a Niners defense. I don't know. I'm not too sold on the Ravens defense right now. especially since they don't have Earl Thomas anymore. Leaves a huge hole in the in the secondary. They do have probably the best cornerback duo in Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, but safety wise they're pretty unimpressive. So I don't know. I think Mahomes is gonna pick that defense apart and take the win there. So that's how I think the week 3 games are gonna go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if I'm kind of losing where I'm going in terms of like my conversation, but I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place today, but I want to get this video out now, so I'm not trying to make the video seem rushed. I'm just kind of all over the place today. I don't know what's going on, but hope you guys enjoyed the video regardless. Be sure to leave a comment telling me what I can do to improve these videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you haven't done that already. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.